It's quiet, the kind of quiet that weighs more than sound. A marble hallway, polished to perfection, stretches into the courtroom of the U.S. District Court, Washington, D.C. Every click of a camera echoes like thunder. A convoy of reporters wait near the double doors, waiting not for justice, but for spectacle. And then he walks in. Miles Hawthorne, 38. Tall, confident, the face of a man used to being obeyed. His suit costs more than most people's annual rent. A $6,000 tailored Armani charcoal grey with cufflinks engraved with his initials, M.H. He doesn't look like a man on trial. He looks like a man attending his own press conference. He pauses at the entrance, scanning the crowd, not for familiar faces but for familiar cameras. He gives one a half smile, the kind that says, "I'll be out by lunch." But behind him sit rows of faces that aren't smiling, the people he defrauded. A mother clutching a photo of her house, the one she lost because of his scam. An elderly man staring straight ahead, eyes red from months of stress. They all look at him the same way, like a ghost that's still haunting them. Miles doesn't notice, or maybe he doesn't care. To him, they're not people. They're numbers on a spreadsheet. He thought this was just business, but the line between business and betrayal is thinner than he thinks. The bailiff steps forward, voice firm. All rise for the Honourable Judge Evelyn Cole. Everyone stands. Everyone except him. Miles stays seated, legs crossed, gaze locked on his phone. A soft ripple of whispers moves through the room. The cameras catch it instantly. And then she walks in. Judge Evelyn Cole. Early 40s, brown skin glowing under the harsh courtroom lights. Her robe flows behind her, calm and commanding. Every step is deliberate. She's not the kind of woman who needs to raise her voice. Her silence speaks first. She glances toward the defense table and sees him still sitting. For a split second her eyes narrow, not in anger but recognition. She's seen this kind of man before, the kind who thinks rules are for everyone else. "Mr. Hawthorne," she says, her tone controlled, every syllable sharp. "In this courtroom we stand not for people but for principles. I'll give you one more chance." He finally looks up, smirk forming. "With all due respect, Your Honour." Respect is earned. The words hang heavy, slicing through the air. Even his lawyer shifts uncomfortably. Someone coughs in the gallery, trying to break the tension. But she doesn't flinch, doesn't blink. She simply says, "Then let's begin earning it." Some moments don't need shouting to be powerful. They just need silence, and the courage to hold it. Evelyn takes her seat, opens her folder, and starts the proceedings as if nothing happened. But everyone in that room feels it. A shift. Miles leans back, smirking again, whispering something to his lawyer. "I told you, they can't touch me." Across the aisle, one of his victims, an older woman with trembling hands, whispers to her daughter, "He's not even sorry." Her daughter squeezes her hand. "He will be." The bailiff reads the charges. Wire fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy, numbers in the millions, dozens of victims. The words roll through the air like thunder, but Miles doesn't even look up. He's scrolling his phone again, messaging someone. "If you believe some lessons can't be bought, only earned, subscribe now. Because what's coming next will remind you, arrogance never wins the long game." Judge Cole lifts her gaze. "Mr. Hawthorne, are you listening?" He doesn't answer. She asks again, slower this time. "Are you listening?" He finally looks up. "Oh, I heard you. Just not sure any of this matters." She tilts her head slightly. "The calm before a storm. It matters to the people you stole from." He chuckles softly. "They invested in a dream. Not my fault they couldn't afford it." A gasp ripples through the back of the room. Someone mutters, "Monster." Evelyn doesn't move. But her eyes, they harden, the kind of hard that comes from seeing too much injustice to be shocked by one more. She takes a deep breath. "Mr. Hawthorne, in this courtroom, you're not above the law. You're under oath, so choose your words carefully." He grins. "I always do." There's arrogance, and then there's blindness, and sometimes they wear the same suit. The prosecutor begins opening statements. They show photos of the foreclosed homes, the unpaid hospital bills, the families displaced. Miles barely glances up. One photo catches the room's attention, a single mother standing outside her boarded-up house, holding her son. The same son who's now sitting in the courtroom clutching a worn baseball glove. The camera pans to Evelyn. Her jaw tightens, but her voice remains steady. "Proceed." Every few minutes, Miles checks the time. impatient. He leans over to his lawyer again. "This is dragging. How long until we can file for appeal?" The lawyer whispers something back, but Miles cuts him off. "Don't worry, money talks." That's when Evelyn looks up again, eyes steady. She doesn't interrupt the lawyer. She just stares, and in that stare, there's history. There's every courtroom where dignity had to fight to be respected. He thought this was just another trial. But this wasn't about money anymore. It was about the kind of justice money could never buy. As the prosecutor finishes, the judge closes her folder. Her voice is quiet, too quiet. "Mr. Hawthorne, before we continue, I want you to understand something." He leans back, arms crossed. "Go ahead." She folds her hands. "When people walk into this courtroom, they bring their truth with them, and truth doesn't care about your net worth." A beat. The gallery leans in. "You think respect is earned. I agree. So let's see if you can earn it, not with money, but with humility." She looks down, signs a paper, and says, "Court will recess for 10 minutes, but when we return, I expect everyone to be standing." Her gaze lands on him, long enough to make him look away for the first time all morning. The camera holds on her face. Calm, collected. But you can feel it. Something deeper building beneath that composure. He came to court to prove his power, but he just met a woman who didn't need power to prove hers. It's past noon now. The sun slants through tall courtroom windows, spilling gold across tired faces. For most people, this isn't just another day in court. It's the first day they've been able to look the man who ruined their lives in the eye. A single mother, Janine Alvarez, takes the stand first. She's holding a folder that's falling apart at the edges. Old bills, foreclosure notices, the things Miles Hawthorne's company left behind when they vanished overnight. Her voice trembles as she speaks. "I gave him everything I had. My savings, my kids' college fund. He promised we'd have our own home by Christmas." Her voice breaks on the last word. The courtroom is silent. Even the reporters stop typing. But Miles, he doesn't even look up. He's scrolling on his phone, thumbs gliding, face lit by the cold blue light of the screen. Now and then, he smirks. Judge Evelyn Cole watches him closely, her chin resting lightly on her hand, eyes steady, expression unreadable. No judgment yet, just quiet observation. Some lessons don't come through shouting, they come through silence, the kind that mirrors back exactly who you are. Janine steps down. A veteran replaces her. Sergeant Daniel Brooks. His uniform doesn't fit the same anymore. His medals are dull now, not from neglect, but from years of disappointment. "Ma'am," he says, voice steady but low. "We served our country believing hard work meant something. But this man," he turns toward Miles, "he used our trust like currency." Miles chuckles softly. The sound bounces through the courtroom like an insult. He whispers something to his lawyer, then mutters, "They should have read the fine print." The words hang in the air, arrogant, sharp, unrepentant. You can feel people tightening their fists in the gallery. Judge Cole doesn't interrupt. She just leans forward slightly, a signal to continue. The next witness, an elderly woman named Mrs. Powell, walks up with the assistance of her grandson. She looks like someone who's seen too many winters but still believes in justice. "I lost my home. My husband's grave was on that land. He took that from me." Miles doesn't blink. Instead, he adjusts his tie and checks his watch. Some people think time is on their side until every second becomes proof of what they refuse to feel. For 2 straight hours, victim after victim testifies. Each one tells the same story in a different voice, dreams built on trust, shattered by greed. But Miles sits like a man in a meeting he didn't want to attend. Yawning quietly, whispering jokes, treating pain like background noise. Even his lawyer begins to look uncomfortable, shoulders sinking, eyes darting to the floor. But not Miles. Not the man who thinks consequences for other people. When the final witness leaves the stand, the room is heavy with unspoken emotion. You can almost hear the collective heartbeat of people waiting for something, anything, to balance the scales. Judge Cole straightens a few papers. Her tone is calm, almost too calm. "Mr. Hawthorne," she says, "before this court moves forward, I'll ask you once. Do you have anything to say to the people whose lives you destroyed?" He leans back in his chair, arms folded. His voice is smooth, confident, careless. "They made bad choices. I just made better ones." The air freezes. It's like every molecule in the room stops moving. Gasps ripple through the gallery. Even his lawyer turns away, pressing a hand to his forehead. And for the first time, Judge Cole's expression changes. Not anger, not disbelief, but something deeper. Disappointment. Arrogance isn't loud because it has truth on its side. It's loud because it's afraid of what silence might reveal. Miles smirks again, thinking the silence means he's won. But Judge Cole lets the pause stretch, long enough for him to start feeling it. Long enough for every person in that courtroom to see just how small he looks against the weight of what he's done. Then softly, she says, "Mr. Hawthorne, I want you to understand something. This courtroom doesn't exist to humiliate you. It exists to remind you, and everyone watching, that human lives are not business transactions." He rolls his eyes. "With all due respect, Your Honor, people lose money every day. It's not personal." That's when she closes her folder. Not slamming it and not flinching, just closes it. Deliberate, final. "That's where you're wrong, Mr. Hawthorne. To them it was never about money. It was about trust." Her words echo across the courtroom like a slow drumbeat. Even the cameramen seemed to hesitate, unsure if they should keep filming. He thought the courtroom was just a stage. He didn't realize it was also a mirror. There's a pause, a long one, before she signals the recess. Everyone stands. But Miles remains seated again, this time not out of defiance, but confusion. He's starting to feel the shift, the kind you can't buy your way out of. The victims file out quietly. Some nod to the judge, some wipe tears. Miles glances up, seeing them differently for the first time, not as numbers, but as people. It lasts only a moment before the arrogance returns. He laughs under his breath. "She's putting on a show," he whispers to his lawyer. "They'll forget in a week." His lawyer doesn't respond, because deep down, he knows, this is no show. This is a reckoning. Some storms don't start with thunder. They start with one quiet woman refusing to look away. If you're still watching, it means you believe some voices deserve to be heard, even when power tries to silence them. Subscribe to Untold Black Struggles, because these stories matter more than ever. Back in the judge's chambers, Evelyn Cole takes a deep breath. She's seen arrogance before, but this is something else. A man who truly believes the system bends for him because it always has. She looks down at her notes, at the faces of the victims drawn in her mind. She remembers her own father, once denied a bank loan because of his skin color, even though he'd earned every right to it. Maybe that's why she became a judge, not to punish, but to remind men like Miles what fairness looks like. As the gavel strikes to call the court back to order, there's a new weight in the room. Not of fear, but of anticipation. Because everyone knows now, this isn't just a trial. It's about to become a turning point. He thought his verdict would be about guilt or innocence. He didn't know it would be about the kind of justice money can't buy. The courtroom feels colder now. Afternoon light cuts through the blinds in thin, sharp stripes, like bars across every face. The victims sit quietly, drained but hopeful. They've told their stories. Now it's in the judge's hands. Miles Hawthorne reclines in his chair like a man waiting for his private jet to refuel. He stretches, whispers something to his lawyer, and flashes that same rehearsed smile, the one that used to charm investors and reporters alike. To him, this is routine. Another business hiccup. Another PR storm he'll spin out of by Monday. The prosecutor rises for the final statement. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't need to. He just gestures toward the people behind him. "Your Honor, these are not numbers on a spreadsheet. They are families, workers, retirees, people who believed in a dream Mr. Hawthorne sold them." He turns to Miles, and when that dream collapsed, he didn't apologize. He laughed. The words linger like smoke. Miles leans toward his lawyer, whispering, "He's good, but speeches don't change facts." Judge Evelyn Cole says nothing. Her gaze is fixed not on Miles, but on the victims. Every tear, every trembling hand. She's seen this before, not this case, but this imbalance. Power against faith, money against hope. And she knows this is where justice either means something or it doesn't. Some men build empires on loopholes, until one woman decides to close every single one. The prosecutor finishes and sits. Miles's lawyer rises, smooth and confident, voice honeyed with control. "Your Honor, my client has contributed millions to this city. He employs hundreds. This case, this noise, comes from the disappointment of a few unfortunate investments." He gestures casually toward the victims. We can't punish success because others failed to understand risk. The room stiffens. Even the bailiff looks away. Judge Cole's eyes narrow slightly, not in anger, but in disbelief. Miles smirks, thinking his lawyer's words are working. He leans back, mouthing something to a reporter in the front row. Something about optics. But optics won't save him now, because while his lawyer speaks, Judge Cole flips open a small, sealed envelope. The sound of the paper tearing seems louder than anything that came before it. "Mr. Hawthorne," she says calmly, "before we proceed to sentencing, I'd like you to confirm one detail." Her voice slices clean through the room. Miles straightens, still cocky. "Of course, Your Honor." She holds up a small USB drive. "This was submitted to the court anonymously. It contains a recording of you, bragging that you could buy any verdict you want." The colour drains from his face. He glances toward his lawyer, who goes pale. "That's ridiculous," Miles stammers. "Anyone could have..." Judge Cole cuts him off, voice steady. "The recording includes your voice, your office, and your timestamp. Do you deny saying it?" The silence that follows feels surgical, cutting every layer of his confidence apart. He spent years controlling the narrative until the truth found its own microphone. Reporters whisper, cameras click, even the audience shifts, sensing the tide turning. Miles rubs his temples, trying to recover. "That's private," he says weakly. "It was a joke." Judge Cole leans forward slightly, a joke made while people were losing their homes. Her tone is calm, but behind that calm sits something unshakable. Not fury, not ego, just justice finally standing tall. Miles opens his mouth again, but nothing comes out. He thought silence was power. Now it's the sound of his empire collapsing. The judge places the envelope aside and folds her hands. "You've built a career on convincing people that rules bend for those who can afford to break them, but not here, not today." Her words hang in the air like a sentence long before she even delivers one. For the first time, Miles looks lost, like a man suddenly realizing his name won't protect him. He turns to his lawyer. "Fix this." His lawyer whispers back, voice shaking, "There's nothing to fix." Judge Cole's voice breaks the tension again. "I've been in this courtroom long enough to recognize a pattern. It's always the same story, arrogance dressed up as ambition, and men like you call it success." Miles leans forward, desperate now. "You don't understand how business works." She nods slowly. "You're right. I understand how justice works." He wanted to teach her a lesson about power, but she was about to redefine it. If stories like this remind you that integrity still has a voice, subscribe. Because Untold Black Struggles isn't just about what happened, it's about what keeps happening. Miles slams his hand on the table. The sound echoes through the courtroom. "This is a setup. You think because you sit up there you can judge me? I built everything I have." Judge Cole doesn't flinch. "And that's exactly the problem, Mr. Hawthorne. You think justice is beneath you, when in truth it's the only thing holding you up." The gallery murmurs. The prosecutor looks down, quietly satisfied. Miles's lawyer presses his lips together, eyes closing, like a man waiting for a storm that's already overhead. Judge Cole pauses, glancing briefly at the victims behind her. Their faces, tired but resolute, are the reason she's sitting there at all. "You see, Mr. Hawthorne," she says softly, "you've spent your life building walls of influence and privilege, but today those walls don't exist. Not here. Not now." Miles looks around, as if realizing for the first time that every exit is guarded, that the cameras capturing his arrogance are now capturing his fall. He walked in thinking this was his stage. He didn't realize it was his mirror. There's a beat of silence, then Judge Cole speaks again, this time quieter. "This court doesn't punish wealth. It punishes what happens when wealth forgets its responsibility." Her tone drops lower, every syllable precise, deliberate. "Mr. Hawthorne, in this courtroom, justice isn't for sale, and neither is dignity." You could hear a pin drop. Miles sits motionless, staring at the polished wood in front of him, the reflection of a man he doesn't recognize anymore. The fall always looks sudden, until you realize the ground's been rising the whole time. Judge Cole straightens the papers in front of her. "We'll reconvene shortly for sentencing." She rises, calm and deliberate. Everyone else stands with others, including Miles, though not out of respect, out of fear. As she walks toward her chambers, the cameras flash. Each click feels like a record, capturing the exact moment arrogance met its reckoning. You're still watching because something about justice done quietly hits different. Subscribe to Untold Black Struggles, where power gets tested and truth always wins. The courtroom has fallen into a heavy silence. Even the air feels thicker, weighed down by anticipation. The victims sit rigid, exhausted but resolute. The cameras hover, capturing every line, every twitch. And at the center of it all, Miles Hawthorne, once confident, once untouchable, looks smaller than the room itself, swallowed by the gravity of what's coming. Judge Evelyn Cole rises from her bench, her robes flowing like a dark wave of authority. She doesn't bang the gavel yet. She doesn't need to. Her eyes sweep over the courtroom, at the families, at the press, at Miles. They are steady, unflinching, and for the first time, Miles feels the weight of judgment in a way money could never buy. "Mr. Hawthorne," she begins, her voice calm but carrying the resonance of every story that brought him here. "You refused to stand at the start of this trial, believing that your wealth could shield you from the principles this court upholds." Miles shifts in his chair. He opens his mouth to reply, but the words die on his lips. No amount of charm, no well-rehearsed excuse could match the authority in her voice. "Today, this court stands, not for you, but for those whose lives you disrupted, whose dreams you stole, whose faith in justice you tested." The room is still, taut with emotion. Every whisper, every heartbeat, every shutter click seems magnified. He spent years convincing people that he was untouchable, until one woman reminded him that money is nothing in the face of truth. Judge Cole picks up a set of papers, unfolding them slowly, deliberately. After careful consideration of all testimonies, evidence, and the additional recordings submitted anonymously, this court must now deliver its sentence. Miles swallows hard. His smugness has drained, leaving a thin veneer of disbelief. He glances at his lawyer, who meets his gaze with a grim, silent message. There is no escape. "Mr. Hawthorne, your actions were calculated, your intent, deliberate. The pain inflicted upon hundreds of families is real, measurable, and enduring." He leans back, pressing his palms into his knees, trying to maintain some control. "Your Honor, surely." She raises a hand, cutting him off without raising her voice. There are no shortcuts to accountability. There are no negotiations when lives are destroyed, only justice. The victims shift slightly, some wiping tears. They've waited years for this moment, for recognition, for acknowledgement, for restitution. And now that moment is here. Some think the courtroom is about law, but sometimes it's about making the powerful see the human cost of their actions. Judge Cole flips a page, her gaze lingering on the list of stolen assets, fraudulent investments, and ruined homes. "Mr. Hawthorne, it is the judgment of this court that you serve 20 years in federal prison. You will pay full restitution to the victims of your crimes. Your assets, all holdings associated with these fraudulent activities, are to be seized to compensate those harmed." The words hit like a hammer. Miles stiffens, pale now, his carefully curated image crumbling. His lawyer's hand trembles slightly as he takes notes, a faint sheen of sweat on his brow. The victims exhale, some shaking, some clapping their hands lightly in relief. Tears roll down faces etched with years of hardship. "Justice, finally," a man whispers behind the back rows, almost to himself. Miles looks up. He stares at Judge Cole, really sees her, and for the first time, the enormity of his arrogance is reflected in her unyielding eyes. "You could have gone easy on me," he mutters, voice cracking under the weight of reality. She meets his gaze evenly, unflinching. "So could life," she replies quietly, but it didn't. The gavel slams down, sharp, decisive, final. The sound resonates through the courtroom, echoing not as punishment, but as affirmation. Authority has spoken. He thought the gavel was just a tool, until he realized it was a voice louder than money, louder than influence, louder than fear. Reporters scribble furiously. Cameras flash incessantly. The victims sit back, some smiling softly, some gripping the arms of their chairs, finally feeling relief wash over them. Miles sits motionless, the reality of 20 years, full restitution, and asset seizure settling like a weight he can't lift. As guards approach, he rises slowly, handcuffs awaiting him. There is no bravado, no witty remark, no plea, just the quiet understanding that his empire, all of it, cannot protect him from accountability. Judge Cole addresses the courtroom one final time, her tone steady, resonant. This verdict is not about vengeance, it is about recognition. Recognition that no one is above the law, that wealth does not grant immunity, and that dignity must always be honoured. They expected fear to break him, but power measured in silence, integrity and truth has a sound all its own. Miles is led out, his eyes still locked on hers. The courtroom exhales collectively. The victims murmur gratitude, some quietly, some aloud. The press captures every frame, the moment arrogance met consequence. Judge Cole sits back at her bench, calm now, collected. The air lightens almost imperceptibly, but enough that the tension, the fear, the anticipation dissipates. Justice, in its quiet authority, has prevailed. If watching moments like this reminds you that courage and dignity still matter, hit subscribe now. On Untold Black Struggles, we follow the stories where truth doesn't shout, it simply stands tall and changes everything. The courtroom empties slowly. Miles, now just a man facing consequences, disappears down the hall. Handcuffed, escorted. The victims linger, talking softly, hugging, crying quietly. Some stare at the bench where Judge Cole sits, her presence calm yet commanding. She doesn't need to speak anymore. The verdict, the silence, the power of her authority has spoken for her. The powerful often forget. True strength isn't loud. It doesn't need approval. It doesn't bend. It stands and lets truth do the talking. Finally, the courtroom clears. Judge Cole rises once more, just for the cameras, just for history. Her robes sway as she walks down the aisle, an image of quiet dignity against the echoes of shattered arrogance. The press calls out, the cameras follow, but she moves with purpose, not show. Every step is a reminder that justice, when applied without fear or favoritism, leaves an impression deeper than wealth ever could. The courtroom doors close behind her. Silence reigns, but the resonance of that day of accountability, of power rightly wielded, lingers far beyond the polished wood and fading cameras. Money, influence, and arrogance, they all dissolve under the weight of a principle that refuses to bend. If stories like this remind you that dignity and truth can still win, subscribe. Because on Untold Black Struggles, we show that power doesn't need to scream to be heard. It simply stands calm and changes everything.